Okay, so here we are in Virgin Queen. The story so far. So, the Spaniards moved to counter the Turks. The Turks came forward, tried to siege Naples, but didn't have the strength to do so. They might have been able to take Malta. The buzzing comes from my pipe. Having it in my teeth causes extra vibrations or something. The English were able to drive the French fleet from the Channel, and let's put this back up here, and take Edinburgh and some of the adjacent areas. However, Ireland went into revolt. The Moriscos went into revolt in Spain. And otherwise, let's see, we had some expansion of the Protestants in both France and in the Netherlands. A lot of the rest of it, though, is fiddling around with victory point things. You know, not really stuff that feels like it's driven by the board position or anything of that nature. And that's one of my kind of iffy things about this one in particular, is that, you know, a lot of it's just these little pips on a card. They're like, something's happened. Well, what was the something? Well, we had two marriages celebrated. The French one, which would be between Philip and Elizabeth, was very successful, whereas William of Orange was basically canceled out. But similarly, with the artists and the scientists, it's just sort of a roll on a chart, and you get some points, and the points just go in your bank, you know? And that doesn't feel satisfying in the same way as things that happen on the board, you know, or I don't know. It just feels like points on a chart to me, right? And if I look at a game like EU, which also has points on a chart in a sense, because there are things you can do that score you points. Well, a lot of them are things that directly reflect to the board. The same way, and I don't mind these at all, like the control of Paris here, giving a point. Look, that's like the victory point chart, you know, for things that you aim for goals that you aim for in a game of EU. But some of them do feel a little bit like the marriages and the scientists and whatever. They're usually limited to particular players. There are things along the lines of, hey, if you create Versailles, it's worth like 300 victory points. Boom, right there. If you create St. Petersburg, it's worth a pile of points. And these are just things that you just invest money and you get points, and they don't really have any effect on play at all. They don't affect the economics of the game. They don't affect the board position. They don't really change any events that come later for the most part. And that's how the marriages, the scientists. Sure, the scientists come with a little extra something, these little bonuses that they come with, but for the most part, it just doesn't, it feels like point salad to me when I look at that. All right. Anyway, that's enough chatter about that. I got to deal with my batteries because it looks like one of them ain't charged. Actually, it looks like neither one's charging, but I'm hoping the one up there is full. I realized I fucked up. Spanish don't get this extra treasure until they have the Philippines. I'm starting to go through the card draw phase. I don't remember the order they were in, which one it was. It wasn't this one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'll roll a die and just get rid of one of those. Okay, well, they lose the card draw, which is a very interesting one. Probably you play it on your first card play just to have more options later on. I've started adding the new cards to the deck. I'm still shuffling. These armored cards are hard to cope with. We got some new royals coming in. Mary, Queen of Scots, Charles IX, who I thought was a military leader. You know, it's just so easy to get confused by things. And Henry Lord Darnley. Mary, that's 2 influence in Scotland. Resolve her wedding immediately in the diplomacy phase when it happens. Yeah, before you get to the end of the turn, which means someone may end up, you know, with a couple of bonuses towards activating, deactivating Scotland. Henry adds 2 French influence in Scotland if he marries Mary, Queen of Scots, although he counts as English. So you probably don't want to do that. But on the other hand, the French can offer you a good royal, a better match than you can likely get. +1 Valois marriage VP when he marries. This is the normal. May not marry a French royal other than Mary, Queen of Scots, but if he does so, they're going at it with just a single +3 instead of the +6. You could throw the festivities on and get yourself up to a +5, which is not terrible. And no, you can't throw the festivities on because you don't get a chance to play your card in time. Well, that's a bit of a bummer. And let's see what else happened. So, unlike in most of, unlike in Tanto Monta, I don't remember with Here I Stand, but I thought it had some. There aren't any. This may have been something it took from Clash of Monarchs, honestly. That Tanto Monta took from Clash of Monarchs. It feels like there's some sort of synergy between Tanto Monta and Clash of Sovereigns. Like, there was sort of a convergence on the headline events and the mandatory events and stuff like that. Although some of that may have shown up in Clash of Monarchs before. Again, my memory is not good for games that I haven't played in over a decade, to tell you the truth. I just have too much shit to do, game-wise, to cycle through my games like I used to. You know, back in the day, I'm thinking the 90s here, I had a fair-sized collection, you know, of maybe 500 games, most of which were war games, some of which were just family-style games that generally I didn't solo, but every now and then I really wanted to. But I would cycle through the games I liked every couple of years. That doesn't happen anymore. It's, you know, it's basically at the point where the inflow of games eats up more than what I actually play in a year, probably, which is a sign that I've got to stop. And I really have reduced my intake greatly. Let's see. We didn't get the home card for anyone yet. We got that one here. These come in when the Catholic League shows up. This Morisco Revolt. I'm keeping it out of the deck. I mean, can I remember how it all works without the card? Yeah. But it just feels stupid, like, to have this card ever back in the deck. All its possible effect is a 2-point card. And it's like, okay, sure. Technically, it should be in there. Who cares? It has so little effect on the game, and I would much rather have the card available for reference, and then pull it when I have to. Let's look here. Personages, fortresses and Jesuits. The Spanish didn't build any New World fortresses. They don't get Jesuits yet. Turn 3 is going to be a big turn because that's the Jesuits come in. Okay, I got to look them up and think about them. The Intrigue rule set, which I've completely forgotten about. Yeah, I read it, but I have no fucking clue what it does. Is gone. Now I know that allows for assassinations and counter assassinations, but it also has spying aspects to it. So I'll have to look at that when it hits. New cards in the deck. Shuffle. I'm halfway through, and yeah, the treasures, and then we go to diplomacy. Treasures placed right this time. You know, losing that new card is actually a big deal. I'm going to get a fair amount of cards here. I'm going to get 4, 5 additional cards. I'm holding 2. That's going to give me 7, 8 cards total. And I got 4 of these CP markers. Oh, I forgot about these. I also had to move the new the new patronage people up. But that extra card, playing that early, again, gets me another card and gets me another slot where I can choose, to extend the turn with these points. Luckily for me, I guess, I don't know. I don't know which is easier. In Tanto Monta, everybody's kind of got treasures and stuff flowing in. There's only 4 players, and they all have opportunities and reasonable ways of getting them. I'm trying to think. Yeah, everybody's got a reasonable flow of treasures coming in. Here, except for Spain, people really kind of have to go out of their way to get them. Either, privateering and piracy and whatnot out here, or settling a colony, or whatever. And there aren't going to be a lot of colonies out there or whatever. They're not going to generate a guaranteed return on their investment. So it's actually, pretty much Spain's little game to have all these extra treasures that give them all these CP. But of course, they also have this requirement to kind of defend them and everything. Ooh, this should come back. I control that. I just don't really like it. Yeah. All right. As to diplomacy, I don't know where I'm going to go. I'm probably going to start piecing together, just put a bunch of control markers and have people propose a deal the same way that I do in Civilization, which is I select a player at random, and Pax Britannica for that matter too. I select a player at random, and actually in Pax I do it for the play order. In terms of you've got to do something or choose that you're kind of willing to pass. In Civilization, somebody suggests a deal that they think they'd like to make. They're like, does anybody have this? I'm willing to offer this. But I basically, instead of going through all the mechanisms that happen in a normal diplomacy or in a normal trading phase in that, what I do is I propose a deal that looks okay from both sides, maybe a little better from the proposer's side, or is more instigated by them, but then I roll a die, And in that game, I almost always just go odd, even. Odd, you accept the deal, even, you don't. And you might accept it later, the same deal, after other people have started to make deals and whatnot, because, whatever. And that actually captures the feel of that game very well. This game, I feel like, and with others that have, more of a, you're willing to ally with me, do this, do that, all kind of complexity like that. I feel more of the diplomacy is going to be along the lines of, hey, this looks mutually beneficial, let's just go for this. But I kind of want to randomize the order in which people are giving the offers instead of just always landing on one person. Right now we've got 2 questionable things. One is the English and French. Well, we have 2 wars. The English and French are at war. This is definitely not a great thing for France, and it might be worth that, but it may not be that great a thing for England either, because I've got the Irish to deal with. It may just be that it's worth it for France to give up most of Scotland to the English. All of Scotland, I doubt it, but maybe as a sweetener, if there's something else going on. However, There's not much for France to lose. Is England going to be able to invade France? Probably not. So in exchange for the Scottish territories, maybe the English have to give up a sweetener. But again, that may involve also giving Perth up. I see the TH down there. Spanish Ottomans, again, neither side necessarily really wants the war. Spain has a lot to do to clean up the Morisco issue. Of course, it disappears if the war ends. But Turkey hasn't really gained anything. Can I bring leverage in terms of, say, the Ottomans? They don't bring much. They bring the papacy, which didn't really help me that much before. France's Venetians would be more helpful, but France probably has no interest in helping either side, honestly. Like, they're perfectly happy to have the war continue. The real question is, the Habsburgs have something to gain by going to war with the Ottomans. Of course, the Protestants haven't yet shown up on the map. That doesn't mean they don't have deals to make, but it does kind of weaken their hand. I'm very loath to give cards out. I think I've discussed this before. I'm very loath to give away like an action, right? And it's like a random card draw. So if I have anything decent in my hand, I'm like, yeah, no. But sometimes that may be a major type of sweetener or something. I have to remember the HRE has those mercenaries, which they chose to take as mercenaries, as a bribe. And that's kind of a cool bribe because it costs them nothing. It just gives people stuff. So let's see what the rule is there. All powers except the Ottoman and HRE can receive in the deal. Two players may not give each other's mercenaries, the power granting. If the HRE is granting mercenaries, he may also use them from his mercenaries for hire. Yeah. They may not be granted. Those that are not granted should be lost. Yeah. So this is a major bargaining chip that I threw away on that first turn and really shouldn't have. And that may have gotten me, a marriage or something that I didn't get otherwise. Of course, I had Anne of Saxony in there. Do I have any marriages? Because I'm not sure. I do. I have Charles II. Of course, the cost of marrying into a Protestant family is very high there. So that's already just a boom. Not good. I might be able to do it, to go for the jilted table or something with Elizabeth, but then that steals her home card. Not a great thing. All right. I guess we try to figure that out. This time we don't have any captive leaders. These guys, the generals, show up during spring deployment, during the possible marriage of Elizabeth. Again, not to go through with. Right? I mean, the English really don't want to. They get a victory point every turn for not doing it, as long as she's alive. But it's kind of interesting. I was kind of, we could do Charles IX. It doesn't really help anybody to pick a good marriage opportunity for her, because she's almost certainly going to cancel it, and it's only really being done to give somebody the jilted table where the values don't actually matter. Now, you could get lucky, right? She could not withdraw because she needs to use the Virgin Queen card for something, maybe to stop somebody from winning the game or something along those lines. But yeah, France is kind of like, yeah, you want peace? Okay, I'd like to marry into your family. But his only option is Charles IX. And he probably does not particularly wish to marry Elizabeth with Charles, because getting Charles actually married is a bonus for me. I get a victory point for that. He's got a high value right now, so it would be good for me to marry someone else. Unfortunately, there are no females around except for Mary, Queen of Scots, whom I could choose to do. That would give me a +3 to the die roll. Likely to be no effect, but on a good roll, something nice could happen. On a bad roll, they end up back in the pool and aging, which doesn't help me, using up 2 of my good leaders that way. On the other hand, Mary, Queen of Scots, I could try to marry into one of the English families. I don't know. Little pulsing mechanism for determining diplomacy has come to a hitch that I usually don't allow for, but because all diplomacy is kind of announced simultaneously and is then agreed to or disagreed to, what had happened was Spain got an agreement. Got a -1 card there, but it's actually going to be a treasure, with the Ottomans to come to peace. I just don't see much point to either of us fighting, and I'm willing to offer the Ottomans one of these. I have so many of them to buy them off. However, when I got to the HRE, they're like, I'm kind of interested in war with the Ottomans, man, still. If you're willing to stay in, I'm willing to declare an alliance with you. Maybe give you some mercenaries. And I actually have a reasonable size force this game. 8 to 8 here, but that 8 is somewhat weird because a couple of them are cav, which aren't as, don't help as much in sieges. I have some combat cards in my favor, a lot of them actually, which makes it so that I actually want to go to war as the Holy Roman Empire. Now, I could, of course, play the intercession if Spain is still at war with the Ottomans, but I think I would rather pay a point cost. I have untimely death. That would allow me to kill Piala Pache, who's over here, the naval leader Don Juan Montmorency, Alva, Santa Cruz, Leicester, or Zerini. He's just the leader. I don't know if this would affect the Earl of Leicester over here. I don't remember if they're linked. But I think they are. I think he dies on both. And Zerini is my own. I'm not going to do that. And so what I did was, instead of the sort of normal kind of, is it a good deal for both? Okay, odd, even, whatever. Spain was like, all right, and took a roll on a 1. The Habsburgs got it on the 1. I think what's going to happen is this is going to actually fail. It's still, as far as the Ottomans know, it's still being declared. I might want to decide whether or not I go back to them and say, look, I'm not actually going to be able to make peace with you. Not on those deals. Because I might get a better deal. I might get something from the Ottomans for peace. Now, the declarations of war, this isn't like a whole pile of secret stuff that includes declarations of war. It includes everything but the declarations of war. So if if Spain and the Holy Roman Empire declare an alliance, that's great and fine. That doesn't bring the HRE into the war. And if Spain and Turkey declare peace, that doesn't invalidate anything. You can't put conditions on anything. But the declarations of war all happen afterwards, which is to say that See, the negotiations happens here, the war segments happens here. The HRE could leave the Spaniards stranded no matter what. However, the Spaniards would still get the mercenaries that are agreed to, etc. There's no marriage possible between them. The Habsburgs would also like to marry Mary. It's kind of the best option out there, but I only allow one deal, you know, per cut. So I think we're going to have a violation of this one, and that's going to be linked, right? We go to peace and I give you this. The only question is, do the Spaniards concurrently go back to the Turks? Yeah, they're going to go back to the Turks and let them know, look, I'm not interested in your deal. Sorry. I think I'll stay at war. The Turks are fine with that, I guess. Unless on like a 1, on a 1, I think they might make some sort of counter offer to try to stave off the war. Yeah, they'll make a counter offer, try to stave off the war with the HRE. So there's like this, you know, cascading effects of the negotiations. Maybe Spain let it slip that the HRE is coming in against them, and can I get something? So instead, we're going to switch to this, where the Ottomans are going to give a card to Spain for peace. Does Spain go back? Well, they're seeming like a pretty honorable sort. So what is the order of announcement? Well, the peace would be announced before anything else, so that there'd be no chance for any trickery or anything. So I'm going to cancel this, the alliance and the deal. And that'll put an HRE counter out here. So far, 4 of the players have gotten an action. I want to make sure the last 2 get one as well. Their feel for another diplomacy action. The Protestants go next. They don't have much that they really want to do with anyone. I guess they could ally. Conceivably, they could declare war on someone even, for whatever the fuck that's worth. There's a $sign there, cost 0 due to rebellion. A star here, cost 0 due to rebellion. You know, I'm going to go to war with Spain and France eventually for free. So I certainly wouldn't be doing that. Going to war with anyone else, what does it do me? I don't have any pieces on the board, right? An alliance might be helpful if somebody was already at war with someone else. The English and French were unable to come to a deal. I think that's something I want to consider. Hey, England, why don't we ally? There's no reason not to be honest. So I'm just going to make that a freebie. It doesn't actually place yet. I'll make that a freebie here. But what's a little bit harder to do is I'd like to, and the reason I picked up the camera, I'd like the Earl of Arran to marry Mary, Queen of Scots. The problem here is he is definitely not the best option there. And in fact causes some potential problems. Am I going to say there's no chance at all? I don't think so, but I don't feel like I'm willing to, I don't feel like the French are willing to make an option on this until they figure out something they can do with Mary, Queen of Scots. What they may end up doing, can't because I'm at war with the English. What they may end up doing is making an offer to the English to marry Mary, to say Darnley, and Charles to Elizabeth. but I really want to get Charles married. But there are no other females other than Mary, Queen of Scots. I don't know. I really don't know. What's come out of this is a turn of great pieces. These guys are, none of them are marrying. But the proposals that are going through are Turkey is going to sue for peace with the Spanish. I'm not going to give them Toronto back. I'm going to give them a random card draw. That's what I announced. Spain will agree to that. That'll give them peace. I put the war to indicate peace. The Dutch and the English, actually let's look in order. Spain has no others. We go to the English. The Dutch and the English are going to declare an alliance. Okay. You know, I mean, whatever. This is largely meaningless because the French are going to drop out of their war as well. Also, the English and the French are going to declare a peace. We're going to transfer Perth to the English. And Elizabeth is going to marry Charles IX. How do we mark that? We mark that with the cards like this. France and England go to peace. France doesn't see being able to conquer Scotland as being particularly advantageous. We haven't agreed to this one yet, but England and France are one after the other, so this is set in stone. We go to the French next. I've actually already resolved that one. Let me take it out of the way. There's no real issue there. This one is resolved. Let me get it out of the way. We go to the French. The French and the Holy Roman Empire. Charles of Austria is going to give 4 mercenaries for a marriage to Mary, Queen of Scots. We've got to deal with this right away. There's not going to be any exchange of anything else. But that gave the French a powerful advantage, right, in terms of their negotiation with England. Did they reveal it? I don't know. Again, I haven't dealt the navies back. Those have to all go back too. The final one is, oh no, the Spanish agreed to this right away. Yeah. So I randomly select a card from here. I got 4. So everybody's going to be at peace. It'll be this one. The Spanish get probably Turkey's best card in exchange for an Ottoman-Spanish peace. And that'll get rid of the card marker. And I don't know why these that have this, I think maybe they're part of the optional rules, but they may just be differently printed for no good reason. But no territories changing hands there. Now we immediately resolve Mary, Queen of Scots' marriage because special rules. Husband's power adds 2 influence in Scotland. Resolve her wedding immediately in diplomacy phase. The HRE cares about Scotland, doesn't it? No, it actually doesn't. So we're not going to get anything for that. -1 card next turn to England or Protestant if their royal marries him. That's not the case either. So let's look at, but it was one of the best marriages out there. Let's look at the marriage rules if I can find them. Page 34. Further back than I thought. Okay, where's the special case? See, it's not on here. Where did I find this? Here we go. The same procedure is used to resolve a marriage with marriage Queen of Scots during the diplomacy phase, since hers are done immediately on betrothal. All right, great. So I've got 5 points, if those cards are correct, which they probably aren't. I've got 4 points. Charles is older than I thought. Don Carlos would have been a better option, except he has stupid reroll the highest marriage result die. I guess each player is supposed to roll 1, but whatever. So this is at +4, and that's it. 6 and 4 is 10. That's not a good result. No issue. The couple struggles through miscarriages, blah, blah, blah. There's no effect, and they're gone. Now, Mary's not dead, but she can't get married again as far as I know. She might get I don't know what happens because, yeah, like Darnley or whatever was murdered, and I think she's kind of implicated in it. But she didn't remarry after him, did she? I'm trying to remember. Her life was so fucked up. Anyway, this one remains on the chart. We're not at the diplomacy. We're not at the end of the diplomacy phase yet, because we have declarations of war. Well, who owns papacy now? The HRE does. What are these? Oh, what those are? Look kind of like that. Oh, Venetian? Maybe Venice can gain territory through a card or something. The HRE gets this. All those counters are on the board, although I actually have room to build another one, which feels weird. It's like if you don't have the counters in your pool, you can still do it. There's the English. And then the big French Navy comes back as well. Okay. I'm trying to think where I am. Declarations of war, yeah. So the only person who was really interested in declaring war was the Holy Roman Empire. And although they have cards for it and everything, I just don't feel like I've got the edge to do so against the Turks. Not unless I have some sort of support. And the Spaniards were sufficient support. France might have been sufficient support. I didn't consider them. The reason why they might be is they have the Venetian allies, but the Venetian Navy isn't strong enough, to take on the Turkish Navy. So, what do we do? I have Corsairs and a pirate leader for the Turks, so they can kind of do some other stuff. They have the excavation, so they can work on the Suez Canal. They have all kinds of stuff they can do inside their own kingdom. The whole Roman Empire is usually pretty peaceful. I would love to get Budapest. That's the problem. I want that master of Central Europe. But, that's just not going to happen. The Moriscos. We just had a peace. If the Morisco, okay, where is it here? C23 place. Eliminate all land playable. Remove from deck and Morisco unit from game if unit is eliminated or if the war between Ottoman and Spain ends. Whoops! We made a deal with Spain, yet we still own Granada. Awesome. Hey, whatever. It says remove from game. I'm going to throw it over there. And that there. But that's cool. Now, there was a slight chance, and honestly, the deck to this is significantly smaller than Tantomonta's, which is one of the reasons. So Tantomonta has an interesting little mechanism in the headline events, which allows you to burn mandatory events. It's tricky. You might not succeed at it, but it's something you can perhaps do. And this game does not have that. Tanto Monta also has pre-programmed, these must happen on this turn. And I thought there were things like that in Here I Stand. Those are gone from here as far as I can tell. Hey, this must happen by this turn or nothing. I think the smaller deck makes both of those available. The smaller deck also, though, makes the game more of a competitive game than maybe either of the others, certainly than Tanto Monta. And again, that brings into question the whole, hey, do you really want a competitive game that's this complicated? I think it's okay. Even though I completely harshed on the idea of it on first play, I think it's still within the realm of what I can accept. And I think I've just blinded myself by my love for Here I Stand and then hitting the wall of, I knew what to do that first time I played it. And by taking a look at it under the circumstances that I looked at Tanto Monta, I'm of the opinion that I allowed myself to play another game of this. This may be on more of a knife edge in terms of it was just too easy to win, it looked to me. Spain won the first game on turn one. France is close to being able to win the game on turn one. With a little bit of luck, they could have done it. It feels like it's always going to be close to victory, closer than Here I Stand is, closer than Tanto Monta is to an automatic victory. And then, you're accumulating victory points at a high rate, so you're probably not going to get to the end of the game. That was always one of my arguments against Here I Stand, was that you probably can't make it to the end of the game. But that solves the coin problem, right? Coin always goes, if players are playing well, coin games, at least the ones that I'm most familiar with, always the very competitive 4-player, the Andean Abyss, early, the sort of original flavor of coin games, and a lot of them are of that nature. I would say things like Pendragon are not. There's too much chaos going on in that. But things like A Distant Plain, they always fall on you, and it's like, I can keep the game going forever by playing balance of power games. I think the key difference with Here I Stand was that you can't keep the game going forever. Someone is going to eventually creep their way up to victory. And that in coin games, it always came to the last turn. It always came to the last card after the end of game card shows up. Like whatever the thing that's programmed there, it came to a timing of pretty much whoever got the advantage on that final card wins the game, because you can keep it very, very balanced. I don't feel like Here I Stand you can, and I think that's why I like it better. And I that was something I was trying to capture when I play, because I haven't played Here I Stand in a long time. This one I abandoned after a play, and I'm glad I'm looking back at this, because I think what ended up happening is that my complaint on Here I Stand was it's impossible to get it to the end of the game, just like in this it probably is. But that's a minor complaint compared to the game always ends on who got the good draw on that final card, right? It ends up being, a flip of the die as to who gets the bonus off the final card of the game, or the second to last card, or whatever. There's one card in those original coin games that always determine victory. When I play solo, when I play opposed, well, usually I manage to win, to be honest. At least in the ones where I know what I'm doing. I haven't played a hell of a lot of coin games opposed, though. Mainly A Distant Plain. some Indian Abyss. That's probably it. So, you know, don't know what you're doing. Now, in terms of those, A Distant Plane is one I don't even own, but like I managed to pull out victories the couple times I played it. So, you know, it plays in that same sort of flavor as Indian Abyss. And the only problem there was someone in the game who let me win. It's just like playing a game of Scrabble. If you've got somebody, you know, sitting to your right who opens the board up for you every fucking turn. Actually, I'm not sure if I won both of them, but essentially someone let someone else win in both the games I remember of A Distant Plane. And, you know, it's like, okay, you played stupidly, you let someone win, that's a problem, that can happen in this, but so what? You know, kind of daily updates, whatever. This is actually Tuesday. Has been, I think, since I started doing the negotiations, at least. And beautiful day. Went downstairs to get my chainsaw or whatever. You know, like the battery wasn't charging since Thursday or Friday or whatever, and I just decided I'll put it off and do it tomorrow. I'm running close to needing to go shopping again, so I don't know which way things are going to go, but I'll do something tomorrow, I promise. I haven't dealt with my security keys yet either, so. Okay. Spring deployment, I don't know how much we need to do if there's no battles. I'll look to see if there's anything. For example, Ireland is no longer at war in any way with the English. I don't know how much it matters. The key is in my hands. Territories under Spain's control don't really make it. Well, actually, they weren't at war. Scotland is gone. You know, the things that are going to kind of trigger, I guess, where there's some interest is what do the Protestants do? Because we're in a position for the Protestant revolt. Obviously, the Spaniards have the unrest to clean up. But yeah, I don't see a whole hell of a lot. The Turks, it's not part of spring deployment, but they got some possible piracy to play with, I guess. The Ottomans are at peace, and the home card for the HRE doesn't allow them to, it allows them to join a war. It doesn't allow them to create a new war. Well, there's one place on the board that's worth anything that I could go conquer, which is Tunis. It's a key that's neutral. There's another neutral key, which is Metz, but it starts out as French-controlled. So, whatever's up with that. I don't know if anything happens with the religions in the areas that aren't, you know, religious zones. Again, there may be events, you know. I'm trying to think if there's any of these territories that switched religion, or like the ruler of the territory switched religion, because that's what determines it in Germany. And, you know, I can't imagine Spain or Italy switching religion in this one. Here I stand as more fluid about that. If you were to create a game, a way to link the games, if there was like religious struggle going on in Italy or something along those lines, which can happen in Here I Stand, honestly, I could see where you'd have to change the follow-up game, you know, this one, to reflect that difference. But yeah, for the most part, people are chasing peaceful intentions. The only exception, I mean, the French sent forces out to try to deal with the possible Protestant uprising. The Spaniards sent Don Juan up here on his own. He set him up there. I can't get troops there, but I can get them with the Spanish road, I think. I'm not absolutely certain. At a regular in Milan, move a leader from any space to Milan if desired. Can then move a formation from Milan using rules for spring deployment. Independent, and space is controlled by inactive HRE in 4 or 5 player game. Can also be used in the path, however, no space entered can contain enemy units. This is kind of weird. Like, I guess the HRE is willing to ally as long as it's independent with the Spanish to help them, but that won't be the case here. And so the Spanish road, yeah, it'll get me through Switzerland, I guess, which feels a little weird, to Besançon, but then I have to figure out a way through either the HRE or through France. The path may freely cross one pass, but may not cross any sea zones. So I'm not going to be able to get troops to the Netherlands without ships. And I kind of don't have ships anymore. I can build some more Walloons, and that's about it. That's going to put me into the action phase. I don't feel like playing right away. We are just barely into Wednesday. Raid is requiring less of me right now. I have stuff to do, but and it's put me kind of in a painful position where I'm like, you know, sitting on my beanbag reading, which is cool because I want to get through this book. I'm enjoying it a great deal, and I want to get to my next rule book, but also, you know, just farting around, trying to find things to do and to avoid things, like even things that aren't a big deal, you know. It's very, very hard for me to do anything. You know, in this case, I'm thinking, I don't know, just shit on my computer that like, it's going to take like an hour to set up security keys on all my accounts. And I'm just like, oh, it's like there's this horrible fear or something. It's the same thing that keeps me from doing everything else. Anyway, let's start playing some cards in the action phase. Get moving. You're used to me whining enough already. Option to see what comes of the turn. Let's build the Suez Canal. We need a 6, but we have the excavation capability. That gives us a +2 to the die roll. This spends one of my big home cards. If it works though, and it's a 50-50 chance on, you know, each turn that I can roll on it, that'll allow me to colonize. Now I think I only have 1 colony. I'm not sure. Somewhere it must prohibit me from building colonies. It's not in the special rules for the major power. Therefore, kind of painful. No special notes here under Build Expedition. And this time does not work. Next time it'll be 1 easier, but I spent a hell of a big card and got nothing out of it. But it's worth a couple of victory points. It's worth a card each turn. And it's worth a colony, which may or may not give me resources. I have a couple of interesting cards. Trying to figure out what I want to do with them. You know, it's weird because they're about the only power that's kind of in a warlike state right now. Although there's no revolt in place, I could fuck around with converting some things. And I have a card that'll help me with that, but I don't know that I want to play it until there are more Protestants there. One is this Muscovy company. I can spend this card to get a +1 card marker for next turn. That's all it does for me. It feels pretty damn weak. I don't know about that. And then there's this Catherine's Flying Squadron, which allows me to, as a response card, cancel a whole series of, I guess, events that, like, I don't know, they're not all, some of them are kind of military, but I think they're all French things that, you know, are probably a great idea to cancel, but I'm not going to remember them. Anyway, let me try to figure out what the fuck I want to do with them. I had to send John Knox off to the Canary Islands to build a fortification. Then I'm going to extend my turn with a 2CP marker to get rid of an unrest here and an unrest here. I got to move to clear these unrests, which is kind of painful. So let's get rid of the ones that I can do. Getting those out of the way is kind of cool. What does that dry dock do for me? Naval losses return to the force pool. Yeah, something I want to be at war for. Being tempted into playing this, we're going to jilt Charles. Let's see what happens to him. We get a 2. It is the age difference that proves the undoing. When these two suffer the same fate as Elizabeth's older sister Mary when she married Philip. Spend 2 CP on diplomatic influence and are mercenaries. So the French can do that immediately. What would France do? I think mercenaries sound like the best idea. Special case situation where the French are considering La Tetsu here. He's my best navigator, so he seems like a good idea to send somewhere. But I've already used him as a scientist, and he's over there. Now, I know if he is a captain and he dies, he stops being a scientist. I don't know if he can die. He can't be used, but if he's a captain, he can't be used as a scientist. I decided I'll look over here. Yeah, it's not here. It's not in the French special rules, which means I have to start flipping through the rules, and I'm going to expect it'll be somewhere, maybe under sea captains. I don't see a picture of him. Pictures are usually what I want. So then I go look for, and this is something that pisses me off about this. I look for, Duke of Guise has special rules. He's not in the game yet. Patronage, there he is. Any result other than a 9 when evaluating, remove the sea captain marker from play as well. Okay, so he is now gone. Let me put him there. That's what I wanted to check. I knew there was some way he gets knocked out. Well, the captain doesn't get knocked out. Like, the captain can't die. Yeah, well, yeah, actually he can. He can through bad exploration, right? Likewise, if he's eliminated as a sea captain, yeah. I was considering doing some exploration. Anyway, this German recruitment curtailed. I'm not really worried about getting rid of other people's mercenaries if I'm not in a war. And it might be a useful card to hold, but whatever. Instead, I sailed boop, boop, boop. Dropped a colony. Speaking of which, so somewhere in my mind, I say to myself, geez, you know, this game is what? 1559 to 98. French colonization, I think, was later than the English. And I was just considering maybe, like, there's a requirement I wait until turn 3 to colonize or whatever. I went and looked under here. There's nothing about it here. I don't remember anything from the rules of that nature, unlike the La Tetsu rule. Maybe there is something. I doubt it, but maybe. 3 is using their home card to patronize Balasso at the level that this allows, which is cool. I guess the bonus is that I'm able to pick one from here. I don't have a lot of people, so, but I could have patronized him at a higher level for less points. So I don't know. I didn't read the whole card. I bet you it says I draw a card. Yeah, I get a card in addition. That's not a bad card then. Yeah, it would be pretty shitty otherwise. And I get an Irish Rebellion. Great. There's more points. Protestants are going to play the Sell 'em the second card, and they use the 2 points to preach a sermon that gives them 5 dice. They're going to do it in the Netherlands. I ended up getting an unrest and 2 successes. Let's grab the unrest marker. The 2 successes, where do I want them? Well, I can come out of here, which means I'll go to Maastricht and here. That's, helping me expand northward to get a bigger power base, and I can drop an unrest. It kind of doesn't matter where I put it, to be honest. This will be more problematic, I guess. That's all the way around once, and that's what we're going to do here. They get a Cyprus marker on Cyprus because it hasn't been captured, which is a French territory, and it means the Ottomans have a reason to go to war with France now. It's funny, I looked at the Protestant cards. First of all, they had this, which I think is kind of shitty for, I think it kind of hurts the Ottomans. They get a bonus card of holding 1. Oh shit. Here's where it was. At the start of turn 2, give Selim the second to the Ottomans. Oops. Yeah. So there is something that forces you. Unfortunately, again, it's like, I don't know. Anyway, we cheated. Terrible. It does force it to get played in this turn. I don't know how many other things like that are sneaking around somewhere. I don't see any others on the board. Screw it. The Dutch played it, and that's fine. I could swap out and whatever, but this is fine. But they had this, but they also had a military card. This thing, which is a military card, and the war in Persia, which fucks up the Ottomans. And I'm kind of like, I thought I was looking at the HRE's hand when I looked at it. I'm like, wow, why didn't I go to war? Yeah, because the war in Persia is sitting in a player who really doesn't care about the Ottomans whatsoever. I do have ideas of, and I was considering using that card to build another captain better than this guy, who could do me some piracy type stuff and whatnot, but it's fucked up. He is actually a French captain right now, if I'm correct here. Oh. Of course, there was a lot of duplication in the Tanto Monto rules. There's not in these. So, as an example, I can't find the rules on him here under expeditions. Now, I know they exist, and they're probably over here. As opposed to the Latetsu, which is like buried in scientists. Sea captains, I'm not seeing it there either. Yeah, I don't know where. Is it under nations? You'd think it would have to be under both France and the Dutch if it was under nations. Yeah, it's definitely harder to find these things, these special case items, if they're not repeated or at least some kind of note isn't made to them. Now, there could be a rules reference on here. Oh, he's got something special. Fortresses don't rule. What the hell? P2 in Antilles. Okay, that's kind of interesting. He has a piracy bonus in the Antilles. I don't recall where these came into play. Like all these special rules on all the captains. Let's see. Where would they be listed? The sea captain table. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so it says first come, first served to the French. I really wish it gave me the rule number where I could find where it's actually expressed in the fucking rules. Here's sea captains. I don't see these special ones here, but maybe they are. Sea Captain Sora's all in one big fucking paragraph, so you can't just give it 5.2.1 or something. But it's not like they give the rule anywhere. Whoever first builds the expedition has exclusive use until he returns to England or to Europe. So technically, I guess I got to put a little marker under him to remind me that that's French. The French could grab this other one as well. What's his special? Fortresses do not roll against him. Interesting. What's this guy? Free colonist. Well, that's interesting. So I could have placed him for one and moved him and built a colony, which I probably would have done with that 2-point card. Even though he doesn't have the piracy ability, and I kind of want to use that other guy if I'm going to... I only have, what, one colony? Yeah. I don't know. I mean, that's kind of a deal. But I guess it's less of a big thing. What does this Turk say? Never dies from navigation rolls. Interesting. Yeah, they all have their own little rules. I guess it says somewhere in this long paragraph. Not really. I don't know. Who else do we have? We have Hawkins. He has rules that I know about, kind of. Starting on turn 3, he can build the race-built galleons. Who else do we have? We have a German guy here. Cost 2 CP to build an expedition. Yeah, this is the only expedition I guess the Germans have. Okay, whatever. Anyway, I guess I am done probably for the night. I think I'm gonna crash later after some sleep, some fucking around, whatever. I'm looking at the Ottoman tribute card. It allows you to declare war on the HRE, Venice, or Spain. Now, I'm not really interested in going to war with Spain. I bought them off. The HRE, I particularly didn't really want to go to war with. I've got nothing terribly advantageous in either case. I have restored the Emirate of Granada. However, poor Spain. What is on here is that I could declare war on Venice. Okay. Now, I don't think I'm allowed to do that because Venice is currently an ally of France. And I can't declare war on France, but the only way I can declare, well, the card doesn't allow me to declare war on France. And normally you can't declare war on minors that are controlled by someone. So I think I'm locked out of that, even though that is greatly desirable. And unfortunately for me, let's take a look at this. Oh no, the cost for a declaration of war on France isn't high. I thought it might be because they kind of naturally allied throughout this period. I can't do it now, but next turn I can do it. Because I've got a victory point for Cyprus I've got to get. Another thing I can do is play around with trying to neutralize Venice, but I don't have a political card to let me do that. This big points to conduct some naval movement. Spreading out here, moving up into the Adriatic. I'm going to pirate there. The poor Holy Roman Empire having the papacy there gives me capability to do that. I could have spent for the piracy itself, but the points allowed me to do the 2 naval moves I want to do and to move into Tunis and lay siege there, which, again, one of the few things up for grabs. Something to keep in mind in this series, so I feel like the Huguenot Lent, 8 Protestant conversion attempts that can affect France. This is useless as an event for Spain, but I might actually want to hold that card to keep it from being recycled and going into the hands of, say, the Protestants, who might want to use it. It's just something to keep in mind in the game, that you can kind of negate stuff by using your hold cards. You know, prevent something, because I have a lot of cards in my hand, and you know, but on the other hand, maybe I want to hold stuff that's useful to me, like the Index of Prohibited Books. I might want to hold on to that instead. But if I play it, I can take its effect, and then it's back in the deck, and I might get it again. So, kind of, you know, just that kind of balance is always in play with these card-driven games. Well, with ones that let you hold on to cards. Not all of them do. Just play a shitty card that just moves 1 space. So the reason for that, you know, I could play bigger cards, but this is one that's useless to me, and I don't particularly need to watch much, and I'm pretty sure that I'm going to want to move to here and clear these unrest, move down here, clear this one, clear that unrest, just get rid of that shit before things get ugly. We're going to use the Eloquent Ambassador. I'm going to up my Portuguese, I'll up my Irish, I'll up my Portuguese again, and then I'm going to trigger Ireland to deactivate them, get them out of Spain's hands. If I end up in a war with Spain, I don't want that distraction there. In order to do that, we roll for, we're at +3. That's a 6. Spain's at +1. That's a 7. These guys will hit zeros, so nothing is going to happen. And so I ended up maintaining the status quo for a big 5-point card, which is not optimal. Does a suppress heresy action and gets 3 successes. Doesn't matter about the majors. I take the keys back under my control because they're important to me. Okay, this Turkish move looks like it's aimed at me. It's not guaranteed, but Venice has 2 fortresses and a bunch of fleets. Not going to hit them. Spain, this isn't a port. So, although I have a fortress here, which means it may not be all that exceptional a location to hit, we're going to play this untimely death, and we're going to kill Piala Pasha. And we get 2 extra points for it. We build ourselves a papal fleet. Even though this is a mandatory event, it's one that gets reshuffled into the deck. There are a few of them in this. Finish things off for this round around by patronizing an artist. And that puts me back to the Ottomans and back to taking another break. I feel like I've been up too long to go cut wood. but it's nice and chilly out. It might be a good idea. To cut enough wood, a couple of, one big log that I had started on, and a bunch of smaller things off the smaller tree. Enough that like my body was fatigued, and then I went to sleep. I did try to get it around to dealing with my key, and yeah, that's not going to work on the most important thing until I switch computers. And it's kind of fucked up because I want the key because I know that my computer is unsecure and cannot be anymore. But that one I think I can get compliant. Anyway, I should have done that long ago. But it's okay because the stock market tanked, so I can't really do anything. Anyway, getting to here. I played a big card for the Ottomans because I had a few things I wanted, well, for a couple of reasons. One was I might get new cards off piracy. And I had a 2-point card, which could have gotten me a Siege of Tunis, and then I could hold more cards for next turn. But I decided to play the big card so that I could, and it would also put a problem out there for the Spaniards. Right now, I'm not too worried about the Protestants. They're not doing terribly well. But I took Tunis on kind of a lucky die roll. I performed a piracy action here and got... I took no damage. I got a hit against the papacy, but they took it on the galley, which means I get nothing. Conceivably, the HRE could give me a victory point, but Turkey is beginning to look a little scary. And I certainly don't want to give them a card, not only because I lose a card, but because of the points. And then the Turks spent the remainder of their points on an artist, and unfortunately they didn't get their good one. And they got another one, but that's okay. Muscovy Company for its event gives me a +1 card here. Normally that's not a great thing, but because I have these stupid treasures, and I can't use the treasures for the same color actions that, and that's kind of what I want to do, you know? There are other things I guess I could do. I could, you know, throw a patrol out, build fortresses, whatever. There are things I could do that are worthwhile, but I'm like, yeah, but what I know will never hurt me is being able to, you know, if I play for event, I can always use the extension of points for the things I want to do down here. And I got rid of some of the unrest down there. English used 3 points to set up the Roanoke colony. Played a big card, Sultan's Harem. I had some iffy thoughts about this because there's a good chance that the Ottomans are going to declare war on me to try to get Cyprus from the Venetians. And yeah. But I feel like the ability to make the Ottomans skip a turn, yeah, I get another card, but it's just not that potent. And I wanted to spend the points. And I spent the points sailing here into, what, the Antilles? And grabbed myself, oh, do I have any reactions? Not to that. And grabbed myself some piracy. And I got a treasure for that piracy. I'm keeping that on board Leclerc. He's allowed to carry 2 treasures as long as he's full strength. Goes to half strength. He's only allowed 1. Oh, he's pirate 2 in the Antilles. He got an extra die roll. Ah. Oh well. Because that would have allowed me to either get a card, right, or a victory. No, I can't get a card off this. I could get a victory point marker off of it. But then I can slip down into the Spanish Main and la la la. The return home, a path of connected ocean, can be traced to an ocean zone of entry for their power. How can it not be traced? How can it not be traced? Isn't, like, oh, I guess if I'm on the Pacific or Indian Ocean side of things, it won't be able to be traced. Yeah. Okay. Without going through some sort of hazardous path. Yeah, so as long as I stay in the Caribbean and, South Atlantic and whatnot, I can play around. But once I get to 2, I will not want to. I've got some garlic bacon. I have something kind of neat to eat fairly soon. Let's go on to the HRE. A big card to move Mercator up to the 4-point patronized space with the HRE. And spend another cheap card getting a lot of conversion attempts over there. Moving up north, I want my big cards to have effect. And here's the thing, I don't want to do the rebellions yet until the French and or the Spanish are a little lower in cards, although they can kind of pacify some of the rebellion. All right, that's it for now, because I heard my food ding. And I want my little snack. It was so good. I baked the head of garlic and had it with brie and salami and crackers and whatever. But it's also saddening because I don't think the salami's different, but this is a meal or a treat or whatever that my best memory of it is kind of when my wife initially came to visit me. It was something, that I broke out as a special with wine. I don't have wine now. Can't buy it in the supermarket. Oh no, you can buy wine. You can buy wine. Yeah. In New York, you couldn't, I think. Weird. But yeah, I don't buy wine anymore because I can't buy liquor at the supermarket, so I don't even think about it. I did a few times when I was here originally. Anyway, not originally, but when I first moved back here. Let's get going with the game. I got time for another round. I myself in an annoying problem. Apparently when I set up, I put the Ulak Ali instead of the Dragut side up. Dragut's a better pirate. I'm going to roll another die. So it was just last turn. Okay, that would have been a second hit. Another hit I would have gotten. So the hit I took was a naval hit. I think the HRE is going to give me a victory point. The whole... What are these? These are points the Turks give if they're not a player. I should have pulled these aside. Oh shit. I think the HRE would not have wanted to give up a card. So I'll put that there. The reason I remember that is there's a Dragut Falls counter. The problem, of course, is when you have double-sided counters like this, most of these, the convex side is the face-up side and is the first thing that's on the board. And I think this is the only case where that's not the case. And I don't know, I think I had it right the first time I played. The second time I didn't, but I was thinking to myself, wait a minute, there's a Dragut Falls. And I looked up that event in here, and indeed, it replaces him with this other guy when that event is played. So, bah. The Ottomans are down to 2 cards, and I think I'm going to hold them. The Treachery is a very good card to hold. This one, I just don't feel like I don't have something that's going to give me more actions. I don't have enough points to move and do another piracy. I can't do another one in this space. If I did, I would move here and maybe hit the Venetians. Take a point. I'm going to play the Index of Prohibited Books and try to do some counter Reformation, whatever, preach sermons. No, crack down on heresies. They're essentially the same thing. To try to divert the Protestants from having so much power here. But before I do that, the last thing I did as a conversions attempt, I forgot to update this, so I had to recount. Now, luckily I had just recounted not long ago, and I learned something of importance, which I'm sure is in the rules, which is that only in the 4 regions that are convertible do the Protestant spaces count. The ones over here do not count for anything. The version more or less reverts the number of spaces. I ended up taking all the keys instead. Didn't get any unrest, which is good, because I got enough problems. Of course, then I wouldn't have chosen a key, I guess. I would have avoided one of the keys and taken something else to drop it into unrest. But because hit here, I'm not sure my victory points are right either. That's 8, 9, 10, 11. Should be 15. Yeah, I'm good. Maintaining the state of the victory point track, the Protestant track, and the Protestant track causes the victory points to change. It's just, these things are fiddly little problems that are a pain in the ass. Spend a card that could have really hurt the Spaniards, this Iconoclastic Fury, so that I could move into the Antilles and conduct piracy as well. It seems to be the time for piracy now. Yeah. And I got a single success. The French took, I think, the only decent treasure remaining. Oh boy, did they. Which means that's what the Spanish are going to give up. And yeah, they gave a 1-point treasure to this guy, but on to the French. Now, Leclerc just spent 3 of the 4 points on this. I don't know what I'm going to spend that 4th point on. A 1 point is kind of not all that helpful. I think I'm going to return home. I'm allowed to hold 1 card. I got, again, one of the treasures off of this roll of 6. If I return home, that puts it back in my hand, and I can play one of the counters to extend this turn. But I can't just add to the card or with it. See, here's the thing. If I don't return home, these counters don't end up on my card this turn, which, if I couldn't extend this turn, would be a big deal. I couldn't return home next time, but I wouldn't want to. That would require, like, doing more piracy or something. So yeah, I think I return home. That puts Leclerc up here, and either side can take him. And that gets rid of this. That gets me these 2 treasure counters to play with. And I got 1 big one, 1 little one. I gotta decide what to use with the 1 point, and it's gonna be especially hard if I have 2 1-point spaces. I don't have any unrest to clean up. Oh, why didn't the Spanish clean up unrest? What the fuck did I do with my Spaniards? I played with that, yeah, but I want to get the unrest cleaned up as well. Oh well, I have extra cards. So yeah. I mean, I can buy diplomatic influence, and I could build a mercenary, and that's about it. Forestall the possibility of, oops, I forgot to use my counter. I spent the 4-point chit. I spent the 1 point to get a diplomatic point on the papacy. I'm looking at, if I'm going to end up at war with the Turks, the papacy would be very helpful. And there's the papal bull, which forces that anyway. And I spent the big 4-point chit and threw it all into an artist. I didn't get the best one. I got Delorme. I'm not sure it's the best thing to do. I could have done conversion attempts, which would have been nice as well. By the way, that the banned books or whatever, which is what I played here, the Index of Prohibited Books. I took it for conversion attempts there, but conceivably, if there was an artist or a scientist who somebody spent like 4 points for, that could have been canceled, which would have been, you know, it's so hard to like just target somebody's victory points, but that's what the game's about, man. You know, and that's kind of the thing. The artists and whatnot, they can give you a good little pool of points, especially if you look here. You can get up to 3 points for a writer or an architect. I have an architect up there, so yeah, you know, that can be a big, big swing in points. If I'm not going to be able to go for the military victory. The HRE, and he has a couple of these 1-point cards in his hand. They're playing a 1-pointer, a lot of battle cards. Unfortunately, I didn't have a... See, here's the thing. If you have a handful of battle cards, it feels like, oh, I should be at war. Yeah, but not really, because they suck. Like, they're not good cards to have in general. They don't allow you to do a lot. I'm going to spend that, and I don't know what the hell to do. I don't particularly want to defend the papacy. The problem is my 1-point card doesn't do a damn thing. If I'm in military situation, yeah, I can build a mercenary or whatever. I could throw it in a diplomatic point, but as the HRE, that's about it. It costs me 2 to build an expedition with the one guy that I can use for expeditions. I don't have colonies. There's very little for, like, I could use him to try to circumnavigate or something. I'm just not left with a hell of a lot of much to do. If I had unrest or something, I could start cleaning that up. I guess I could go try to steal Ragusa, you know, except I can't. I'm not close enough. Conceivably, if I had a 1-point card, I could grab something like Basil or something, but it doesn't really do me much, right? There are no keys down there unless I'm going to be at war with Spain or something. I'm just not gaining anything there. I do not know what to do with the point. I actually don't particularly want to try to take Venice from France because I'm thinking about allying with France or something along those lines. So I guess I will just build myself another mercenary. I can't take these for myself. I'm going to play the 10th penny. I was holding off to do this. Unfortunately, the places where there are troops, and I'd be getting like 6 dice to hit one of them, are now Catholic controlled. So I can't make them the heart of my rebellion. I have a cluster of spaces here, a cluster of spaces here. Like, had I played this earlier, it would have been great. But now that the Spaniards did the prohibited books thing, I've got an issue there. Okay. The total number of spaces may never exceed the CPs. So I can basically take one of these sets of 3 spaces. This has 2 fortresses, so I think I'll take that. The advantage to this as my target space would be I'd get my troops there. Here, in order to get all 3 spaces, I had to make this my target space. William of Orange shows up there with a couple of regulars, and I get to make a capital, someplace I can withdraw to, although I can withdraw to fortresses too, but, and yeah, also the Dutch and the Spaniards are now at war. That actually cycles me around. Things are starting to get kind of messy now. I still really don't like the purely victory point aspects of the game. So much of the game feels like it's just, do this, get a victory point, do that, and it feels very Euro-ish to me for that. But there's enough going on, especially like last turn when there was wars going on and stuff. There's enough going on that I kind of still feel an interest in it. It's not that abstract, but that shit, especially the biggest thing is really these guys, and then the marriages. You can make your argument for all of it, but it's like, it just doesn't feel like the fact that I'm not impacting the game state on the board is always troublesome to me. Like, those marriages, what do? They add victory points. That's it. Okay, maybe they have some special advantage or whatever for any given one, but it's not like they're cementing alliances or doing anything useful. Yes, they can be incorporated into the alliance structure, but it's really hard to justify. And you're basically just trading them because, hey, we can both get victory points if we roll well. I have this predilection for I don't know how to spell. For avoiding war in games where there's a lot of stuff going on that's not warlike, and where I feel like, I can build up my capabilities. So things like colonizing, trying to build an economy and everything. That's why something like EU is, very, very pleasant to my taste, right? And even EU pop kind of does to some extent. I want the war to be there. I want it to be driven by things. I don't mind if it's driven by just victory points, unlike, where there's like all these charts and everything that I'm having to pay attention to and try to balance out, do I want to spend on these or do I want to spend? That's the problem with EU pop, the same as with these for me, which is that my resources are very limited, and the choices are difficult. In the actual Europa Universalis, though, I will build colonies and try to build my economy, whatever things do for that. Build my army up to the point that I need it to be, whatever that is. And that usually, and do trade, merchants and whatnot, and that usually eats up pretty much my entire economy. So I don't do any diplomacy actions on the miners or whatever until the economies start getting heavier. With this, it's a lot funkier. And EU pop is in the same position where you're like, geez, I can build tons and tons of units if I want to, which you can't in Europa Universalis. You're very strictly limited. When you start balancing your spreadsheet, you realize I can only maintain X amount of armies, and if I'm going to have, that many, that's probably enough for a war, and therefore I do this and I do that. But here there aren't constraints like that, and you can just keep cranking troops out. You don't have to pay any maintenance on them or anything. But you're very, very limited in terms of the choices that you make in terms of colonizing and whatnot, all that is probably more expensive than it should be. It's hard to tell because it's not just cash. The cards are things like will for certain actions and whatnot. What the hell was I getting at with this? Oh yeah, the predilection for peace, whether pronounced correctly or not. In this game, the thing that I enjoy most is the warfare. In something like EU or EU Pop, the thing I enjoy most is building up my country, trying to build it up into a position where it can fight a real war and have a big advantage on its opponents. There's not a lot you can do here for that. You're not improving technology. You're not, all kind of stuff like that is just not happening. Instead, you're focusing on victory point. And yes, the victory points exist in EU. And some of them are for random stuff like building Versailles. I've talked about that already. But those are just sort of like, oh, I have to do this. It's so many points, I can't ignore it. Those are points that I'm expected to get. And then once you play it once or twice, you're starting to say, well, this game just isn't balanced anyway. This one, I think there's a significant attempt to balance it, although the balance is asymmetrical in the sense that, like, look, Spain and France, Spain proved they could win on turn one. France looks like it's pretty much set up to do so. The only thing that hinders them is the Protestants. They're really the thing that's going to fuck with Spain and France and take away a lot of their victory points, although they haven't yet. It's the wee hours of Thursday morning. One of my clocks is almost caught up. Like, the clock that always was wrong, or just kind of random, which is on my microwave, somehow is pretty much right. It's an hour off where I want it to be, but it's pretty much on the real time. But my bedroom clock, which for some reason has started going really wild and moving all over the place, is almost caught up. It's about 10 minutes off. I don't know what happened. I must be bumping it or doing something. But anyway, let's start doing the... I don't know. We're running low on the turn. People are getting to the point where passes are becoming likely. The Ottomans are passing. Spain plays a 2-point card and cleans up the unrest here, cleaning it up. I can move back, but wintertime I'll be able to move back. I've got 2 treasures left. I will hold on to them because I've got to play at least 2 more cards. I threw the Catherine's Flying Squadron out because I had 2 to play. Now, it is a kind of weird situation. I don't know where the Walloons can be built. Feels like they shouldn't be able to be built in up in Amsterdam. I don't know what their restrictions are. See if construction has that. I got 2 places I can think of looking for it. We got a special here. No. Yeah, here we go. The only unit which can be built in the Netherlands are the Walloons. These can only be constructed in the Netherlands. Okay, so I could actually build the Walloons and try to cure this unrest as well, or build some Walloons. I have quite a few. But that would be expensive because I don't have a lot of counters for them. So I'd have to spend 4 points, I guess, 2 to upgrade that. Wait, is it a 1 on the other side? Oh no, it's a 1 on the other side, so yeah. So actually 3 points, 2 to upgrade and 1 to build there, but I don't know. I have less access. Like, I don't want to destroy this unrest. That's not really my problem anymore right now. English played a card they kind of wanted to hold on to. It's a nice card if you're at war or whatever. But they shifted down here and conducted piracy. They got a success. Rather than give them a victory point, I give them my last treasure. I mean, Spain's not going to have the kind of economics they have had this turn. I really should build myself some fortresses in these easy-to-reach areas. And the English could return home, but doing so would mean that I'd have to play another card to utilize. Actually, I'd have to play 2 more cards because there's 2 treasures here. So I'm going to stay at sea, and then I return during the winter phase after the treasures have been released. The French do have a treasure, so they have to play 1 more card. They also have their home card, so I play their big home card. And they did a suppress heresy with that. That cost 2. They've got 3 left. I'll get to that in a moment. But they got a shitty die roll. In fact, they got lots of unrest and no successes. Since they didn't succeed in converting anything, the unrest actually doesn't hurt them. So at least there's that. I'm down to 1 card, which means I can pass. So I want to use my little treasure there. But for 3 points, I'm going to dump it into one of these 2. I get it in this good guy. Just going for victory points, trying to push myself up. At the least keep up with the Spaniards. And I don't think this is right. I only see one key in an unrest. And presumably keys that changed hands or anything, something else will happen. By the way, I built my only fortress for the turn, so I'm not gonna be able to get another one this turn. All right, and the French want to spend their 1 CP. I don't know what the fuck to do with a single. There aren't a lot of choices. I could play with diplomacy. Scotland could be interesting. There are no Scottish troops anymore, though. I think I'll pump this into the papacy. That's because if I'm going to be going to war with the Turks, like if they're going to go to war with me, having more focus on that side would be useful. Although, you know, I don't know how much it really helps. And that brings me over. He continues building mercenaries or whatever. I have 2 cards they want to hold on to. I have Calvinist Zeal, my home card. I got problems with this. Not with the card itself, but with trying to figure out what to do. So I could do a bunch of conversion attempts in the Netherlands, which would set me up for a heavy revolt next turn, as well as in France. Or I could start a rebellion. Now, if I started in the Netherlands, I get 3 more strength points of regulars, and probably these 3 locations. If I started in France, I don't know what I'd end up getting. Looks like the best I could get is like three locations, no matter what. And again, 3 strength points there. That would put me at war with France. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to fire this off for conversions. I don't really like it. Part of me says I should strengthen my hold in the Netherlands. I'm kind of worried that like my revolt is just going to end, because the Spaniards still have cards to play and everything. But if I do conversions, I can convert a fair amount of territory to Protestant. So that's what I'm going to go with, but I don't know. I lost count. That was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more there. Puts me up to 38. I already did the Dutch ones. The Spanish lose yet another point. The English are fine. The Dutch gain a point. Okay. My totals were pretty good. I got good rolls in both cases. Got an unrest in each case. You get an automatic 6. I only got 1 6 over on the French side of things, which allowed me to go boop boop. We put an area then into unrest, which gets one of these. We got unrest over here, canceling out. I don't know if I took their victory point away. I'll have to recount the Spanish victory points. They may be a point too high. Turkey is beginning to look more potent in victory points, but it's a fair amount of points you have to be ahead of other people. I don't remember how many, like 5 or something. And now, you know, things are set up so either of these can do a more massive revolt. But I'm in danger of William of Orange being captured or whatever. Looking over the victory points, there's more than I thought in here. But the domination victory is a 5 victory point edge over the next closest player. And remember, the HRE has hidden points. So Turkey is going to have to knock them down at the very least. But there was one I didn't notice, or a set I didn't notice, which are religious victories. If the Protestants get this up to 50, well, it says right there they win. How about that? I would notice that. They're getting kind of close. They can win without being on the board, to tell you the truth. Just through religious capabilities. Obviously, the military is the keys. That's pretty standard. Catholic rebellion, this is one I didn't notice. If you do a Catholic rebellion with Spain in England, and you succeed in getting enough hits against the English, you just win the game. They can't do these for free, though. Like, unlike, well, I don't think I can do rebellions here either for free. Oh yeah, I can. Yeah, I could buy rebellions directly. But Spain can't just cause a Catholic rebellion, can it? English Catholic rebellion, starting on turn 3. Yes, I can. That is 4 more hits than the English player. That sounds nasty. I'd have to get a very lucky die roll, is basically what it comes to. Because if I'm only rolling 5 dice, 4 of those 5 would have to be hits, and the English can't get any hits back on me. And I would have to be hitting a place with troops as the center in order to get that, I think. I might be able to just roll the dice in a 0 space. I don't know. But either way, it seems like it's just, and that's sort of a weird sort of, hey, if you trigger rebellions in England, you might just win the game, you know, just by luck. Let me take a quick look at that, because that feels a little weird in the sense that, let's say Spain is in a position where they're losing the game, right, by a lot, and they decide they're not in it anymore, probably later in the game, but if they decide they're not in it, or if somebody's going to win and they can't stop them, they could just fire off a big card for a rebellion in England and hope they get incredibly lucky and just win the game, boom, like that. Does that feel reasonable? I don't know. Okay, so an English Catholic rebellion, you take 6 Catholic conversions, then you specify a target space. So one of the problems is I can't suppress heresy. I think I could preach sermon though, to just convert territories in England. And this is the thing, Berwick can't go away. You can't get rid of the last Catholic space in England. But yeah, I would get conversions. Then I pick a space. If there are no Protestants successful, skip to step 4. So I don't get to roll for hits. So I have to go after where there's an army. Each roll of 5 or 6 is a hit. England eliminates 1 Protestant for each hit scored. If the Protestants are still there, the rebellion fails. I don't know what they mean by more hits than England in that case, because the English don't get hits. If the Spanish have 4 more hits than the English player in an English Catholic rebellion. What about, and this is under, okay, so this can only start in turn 3 because it's part of the espionage rules. So it's a little different from the normal means of doing, like the Dutch rebellion or whatever, which is under the religious rules. Weird that. Where yeah, there's no counterfire in either case. So I don't know what that 4 more hits that the English player gets means at all. That's just really weirdly stated. The English player gets no hits back. All right. Ottomans are definitely passing again. We got to get to the Spaniards. They feel like they're running into some trouble in the Netherlands, so I will be doing something there. So the Spanish opened up with this, collected their forces, got rid of the unrest here. That gets them a victory point. And made an attack. I didn't realize that the Dutch had 2 strength points there for whatever reason, which meant the fight was even. We each lost a strength point from it, and I fell back into Antwerp. Great, whatever. And then I spent for a suppress heresy, getting myself a couple of places back to Catholic. I forgot to record them. That reduces this, and generated some unrest in doing so. I'm not sure. So they have both preach sermons and suppress heresy. This is going to be here. Preaching sermons, Spain can spend on England for preach sermons. Okay. Yeah. That's what I thought it was, but I wasn't positive. I still have one more, my home card that I must play. I don't think England feels necessitated to do anything. France is kind of like, geez, I feel like I'm teetering here. Do I get an extra card? I do not. I might want to play my card if I got an extra card. So they're both going to pass. I don't know if the HRE has a turn to take. One thing that's kind of neat about the French religious wars, whatever, is that the French player isn't pro-Catholic or pro-Protestant particularly. They don't care for victory points in either. And the Huguenot Protestant counters are not theirs. If things get conquered by the Huguenots, that's bad for the royal family. And also, if the Catholic League gets powerful, that's a problem for the French as well, because those become Spanish-controlled things. So it's kind of neat. The goal of France is to prevent there from being any powerful religious faction. Now, the Catholic League doesn't exist yet. An important factor about its existence is it doesn't matter how many Protestant spaces there are. What matters is if the Protestants have political, military control, whatever, and if the Huguenots are actually on the board. So that is something to just kind of keep in mind. Like, if the Protestants start a rebellion, that's going to bring the Catholic League into play, la la la, but also the Huguenots end up at war with the French. Now, I don't know if the Catholic League causes Spain to be at war with the French. I doubt it. At the end of the winter, France is strong enough to warrant formation of a reactionary group whose goal: choose Catholic League spaces, Reims, okay, and 2 other unfortified. You get some French forces, you get Spanish units there. Spain is at war with France and the Protestants when it happens, yeah. So it's kind of an interesting situation, because historically the French were trying not, they were essentially fighting both. Most games don't cover, well, I don't know what most games is. The game that I think of when I think of the French religious wars most, as opposed to War of Religions, which I just played within the last year or so. But the game that's on my mind when I think about this is the old SPI Armada. And in Armada, you really just have 2 factions. You have like the French, who are controlled by, you have the French royalists who are controlled by the Spaniards, and you have the Huguenots, which are controlled by the English. It's a 2-player game, so it kind of makes sense that, but there's really nothing that factors in as sort of the French monarchists' position, which, matching EU's, the way EU handles things, is really taking a more middle-of-the-road type position. This game has that similar kind of idea with, hey, where does the HRE want to put itself in the religious struggles? Well, in EU, you have 3 choices. You can either be a Protestant country. You can declare that the royal family decides it's Protestant, not just in France, in England as well. I think Spain's allowed to too. You could be just sort of normal Catholic, which is like, yeah, you're not in favor of Protestantism, but there's sort of also a reactionary Catholic side, which is really emblematic of, say, the Spanish position. But each of the 3 countries has the option to choose that. I don't think the Austrians have, well, the Austrians don't exist for this. So I'm trying to think who does exist for it. This happens in probably the 2nd era of EU, which means your countries are Spain, Portugal. I think Portugal actually has an option, but they may not. They may not. So definitely Spain, France, and England are options in this. And then you have the Ottomans, Venice, and who's left? Who's left? Uh-oh. Oh, Portugal. Yeah. Spain, England, France, Portugal. Yeah, I'm doing this wrong. Spain, England, France, Portugal, the Ottomans, and Venice. Yeah. And I don't know if Portugal and Venice, obviously Ottomans don't have a say in that, but I don't think Portugal or Venice do either. I think it's just the 3 sort of big Western powers have an option. Now, you've got a big penalty if you take the reactionary side, if you don't take the reactionary side with the Spaniards. And the other two, the game kind of wants that balanced position, the pro-Catholic, but not supremely so. And you could say, well, wait, isn't England Protestant? No, not until Henry VIII. So, like, you know, actually, not until Henry VIII breaks with the church. One thing you have to remember is that Henry VIII was the protector of Christendom, or whatever, the most Catholic majesty. He was actually viewed, because of his writings, as more of a defender of the papal position than the Spaniards were initially. But it doesn't really help them. Like, I think they're still better off taking that sort of neutral position, which is kind of weird. There is an advantage to anyone if they're the most Catholic nation, though. There's a victory point bonus for that. So there are reasons to push the English away from that sort of middle ground. This should not be there. It should be there. I was thinking about buying it with the HRE, and I'm like, nah, I can't. I think I'll just end up buying, I don't know. Like, mercenaries are so much cheaper than regulars. The thing is, a bad card can fuck you up. Like, if your enemy has a bad reaction card or something, they can really screw a big mercenary army up. But once I already have a huge mercenary army, it's kind of like, gosh, maybe I should just keep building mercenaries. This can only transport 8. I'm already above that. Now, I could spring deploy to here and use a 2-leader group there. I'm out of anyone over here I can play with on the patronage charts. I could build a fortress. I'm looking for something I can do. I can only hold 1 card, right? Yeah. I could build a fortress. I could build a fleet. But the fleet won't help me unless I'm allied with someone and loan it to someone, because I just don't have enough fleets of my own to do anything. And if I do that, it won't protect me from piracy, blah, blah, blah. I think I build more mercenaries. There's just not a lot I can do. I could buy diplomatic influence, but I've already looked at that and said, it doesn't look interesting to me. Figure out I'm gonna play this, and that'll be my last card probably. Probably the last card anybody plays. Everybody's on past potential, at least right now. The Spanish Road, I could put a strength point here. I could put Alva there if I wanted to. I might want to. I could get as far as Besançon. But that's it until the Catholic League forms, or until I get into a war with France and take Metz, because the Holy Roman Empire is not available to me. Now, if I ally with them, I could, but I'm not allied with them right now. There's an alliance between the English and the Protestants. That's the only player alliance. So I think I'm going to fiddle around up here and see what I can do with that, which is going to be 1 point to get rid of the unrest. That gets me a card, which is nice. Build, let's see. I could build 1 Walloon. Then I could march up here and I'd have a slight advantage in combat. That I was victorious and I captured William of Orange. I took a hit from it. I used 1 extra point from that card to use control of unfortified space to turn this Spanish but Protestant, splitting the Netherlands Protestant spaces in half. And then I did a conversion, or a whatever it is, suppress heresies, and I didn't get any more unrest, which is good. Converted 2 keys, this one and this one, I guess, to Catholic, and also converted Mones. And I think that's going to be it for everyone. I'm just looking around. Do the Dutch need to do something? You know? Like, it feels like a terrible time for me to enter, to try to do a revolt or whatever, because the Spanish have a couple of cards. I feel like oh, I didn't count these 3. 1, 2, 3. That means Spain gains another victory point. The English are fine, the Dutch lose 1. This game doesn't have as messy a pile of victory points as I felt like Tanto Monte had a more painful victory point count. Even with all these artists and whatnot, they just end up being points in here. Tanto Monte had a lot of getting points for like grabbing a particular location. Like, one player gets an extra victory point or 2 extra victory points for having something or a collection of somethings. And here there's like, hey, you get a victory point for Paris or 2 victory points for Paris, but that's per turn, right? And it just ends up being something that you can look and see, does that convert over? In Tanto Monte, there were just spaces on the board that were worth like a victory point, an extra victory point to 1 or 2 players. And they're not something that gets assessed in the victory point phase. They're just these locations, and they're not well marked. There's counters for them that I guess you can put on the map that I did to remind myself what the hell is going on. Let me consider whether or not I think we're done. I think we go to the winter phase at this point. And I'm just considering the Protestants. So Spain went, we work our way around. The Protestants have to choose. I don't see doing more with them. I just don't think there's an advantage. Like, next turn, I'll have a bigger hand of cards. Of course, so will the Spaniards. You know, no one else is really interested in doing anything. I know that. I've got a nice big pile of points for next turn. What's the problem with that? The problem with that is that William, I'm going to want to ransom him. And having a couple of rich cards in my hand, I think might be a problem for that. Let's look at the ransoming. Of course, I don't necessarily need William. Captured army leader may be returned. Place the army. Oh. No, this does. Oh, no. Ransom of leaders. The second segment of the diplomacy allows a player to regain a captured army leader. The power that captured draws a random card from the hand. Yeah, see, this is the problem. 2 rich cards in there. I'm beginning to think it's better for me to play those cards out and see what I can get from them. What happens with a rebellion? If I do a rebellion, these guys are in a Protestant space. I can rebellion their ass. I think I want to play. Oh, if I spend a big 5-point card on this and hit this, which would be advantageous because it kills off one of the units, it means I don't get a lot of, I don't get any additional territory. I mean, I could take this back, but that's it. But if I do a religious conversion first, use up both my cards, I hate doing this, but I feel like it's in my best interest. Of course, the Spaniards will conceivably play back against me. I'm not sure. Big card allowed me to convert 3 more spaces. I took keys, and I was screwed up. I removed an unrest marker. There was one up here, so that actually I screwed up and had to regenerate that. But now there's 2 of these keys in unrest, so the Spanish lost another victory point. And this puts the Dutch in a position where if I do a rebellion and I pick this space, I can gain 3 territories. If I pick a space other than this, I could actually gain these 2 keys. So I could pick this as my center. I wouldn't be able to capture that, but I would be able to capture these 3 spaces and get 2 keys. That doesn't help me with cards, but it might fuck with the Spaniards. But if this is in unrest, taking this space means that I could take this key and this space, and you know, it doesn't impact the. It actually it gains me another point. If there's the Spaniards. Well, the Spaniards are at 4 cards. They would still be at 4 cards, right? No, they'd be down to 3 cards if they lose a key that's not in unrest. So I feel like the Spaniards kind of need to do something about this. I'm going to swap batteries again. We played the big Grand Tour card to counter that because I don't like the position I'm being put in where a rebellion could cause lots of trouble. And I managed to get 3 hits and an unrest. The unrest went up here. And these were the spaces I took. We're just bopping back and forth. Very here I stand feeling at this point as to what's going on here. Nobody else wants to play around with things, but that does get us to the Protestants. Now they pass because I don't have a good option for a rebellion. If I use my last card to convert things, I'm not getting a rebellion at all. I'm going to hold that big card, hope that the Spaniards don't grab it from me when William is formed. As the other side of things, I could build a fair-sized little force here with that card, but that would guarantee I get it out of my hand. Yeah, you know, it's hard for the Spaniards to build troops, although they have a fair number of Walloons that they can build. About as much as I can have as an army. Let's see, if I build troops with this, 5, I can build 4 and 1 like this. Let's say instead I build this, that's 2, 3, 4. I have 1 more point. What could I do with 1 point? No, I could build another mercenary. 2, 3, 4, 5. That gets me a 4-point stack. Put that in my capital. And gets rid of this card, which is a good card, and I'd like to hold it, but all right, that puts it on the Spaniards, and they are going to pass, which means we get to the winter phase at this point. And this is when I pause for a bit. 2 batteries charging. I don't like to keep running. And the game changes, right? I have to go through a different kind of procedure at this point. Midday-ish on Thursday. I woke up with well, I suffered a really bad Charlie horse in the night. I suspect from using the chainsaw and the stances I have to take and the weird muscles I utilize in that. But anyhow, I'm not going to cut wood today in that way. I might go split some logs. I did that. I have been actually managing at least a little bit of success with that, although some of the stuff that I have is too wet. I hit it and like just water oozes out of them and it doesn't split. It's well enough weathered, but I'm going to have to wait for warmer weather for that. Some of the fresher ones are splitting actually relatively well though, which I didn't expect. But mainly it's old weathered stuff that is kind of thin. It's splitting and I'm like, well, I could actually probably fit this whole thing in my fire if I wanted to. Not that I've burned a fire all year. I'm kind of afraid to do that still. Okay, so hitting the winter phase here, I start going through the sequence of play, and to be honest, I have to flip through the rules to get the information I need. So like, you know, okay, spread Morisco and rest, that's done. Discard unused treasures, okay, that's easy. Everything's going pretty well. Then I get to remove lone naval leaders markers and return to fortified spaces. There aren't any on the board. And, okay. Leaders and units return to fortified spaces, possibly suffering attrition. The problem with this one is that's done in an order. Obviously, it's going to be done in impulse order for each piece. But I don't know if the land units move first or then the naval or the naval units move first. I don't know if it matters. And there are some specifics that I kind of know. Like I would have to look up if I have to walk through unrest or if I have to cross a pass or something like that. And then I look over on the chart, and this is just really a reproduction of the sequence of play here. There may be a little bit more detail. It looks like there is, like just in terms of size, right? The font on the player aid card is smaller, but it's a little less wide, not by much. I don't know what's going on, but there's not extra information there. It just looks like a complete repetition, which is not useful, you know? So, okay. Trying to get away from just flipping through the rules all game. Generally, the sequence of play thing itself, and they are exactly the same here. It says, leaders and units return to fortified spaces. What it doesn't have here is a call out specific for the naval units, which do not have to return to fortified spaces. This is something I just looked up because looking in the sequence of play, I'm like, oh, I may have cheated because, you know, like these Spaniards went here or whatever. No, they just have to return to ports, which is what I thought the rules were. Here I'm running into a problem. Well, first of all, the naval units have to return to their nearest port, which means the guy who was sitting out here on the Barbary coast actually had to come back to Tunis or Algiers, which is kind of a pain in the ass because the rest of my fleet's here. With a couple of moves, we can coordinate them, but it does mean that I sent a fleet out to a dangerous location where, you know, it's possible the Spaniards could get a jump on them or something. Okay, but when I hit the land unit movement, okay, peachy fine, you can transfer over sea, whatever. I looked up and made sure the Spaniards could redeploy units to Milan. Even if they're like in Spain, they can. They can go back to either home capital. But if they're already in a capital, they can't go anywhere. But I had some issues with units here that are in an unrest space, and I'm like, I don't think you have to roll if you're in unrest. I think for attrition, remembering my Tanto Monta rules, not my Here I Stand ones, that's too far back, but I'm pretty sure you have to roll if you either end in a space in unrest or if you have to move through one. And indeed, I found indications of that. So for example, here they say any stack moving during this takes attrition if its path must cross or end a space, see above, if its path must cross or end a space in unrest or not under friendly control. So I start looking for the attrition rules. And I look here, check stacking violations, the stack takes attrition, see above if the path must cross the space. I'm expecting to be surprised here and find it. I haven't been able to find this thing I'm looking for above. Okay, well, it's not there. Here we go. If no such, finally it is, yeah. Like, in Tanto Monta, there is an attrition roll, and you roll dice for it, if I recall correctly. Maybe not, maybe I'm mistaken. You roll dice for the mercenary, the equivalent of mercenaries in that, which are the feudal levies, essentially. I'm trying to remember what they're called. Are they called militia in it? I think so. Here we go. If no such path exists, the stack takes attrition, losing half of its units rounding up. All right. So, just so that I kept chasing this attrition, and I couldn't find the attrition rule, and skimming through this, I didn't see it, but now I do. And that's what I fully expected to do, because sometimes with the camera, I'm able to see better than I am without, which is kind of a bonus. I did that last turn, and I did this fine, I don't know. The first game ended on the first turn, so I didn't do it there. I thought I did this at some point or another, so I probably did do it last turn. You get a replacement strength point each turn. So, well, per capital, actually. So, that is kind of cool. Except for the HRE. Yeah, I did it because I took the choice of taking two mercenaries, and I was just worried that I fucked up. I wasn't going to repair it. But it's one of those things that, you know, it's covered throughout the entire series. It just doesn't stick in my head well. Heavy use of mercenaries by the HRE, they're actually taking a regular unit here. They're afraid that their entire army might end up dissolving if they're not careful. You know, it's funny because for the most part, regulars get placed as garrisons in locations. I kind of consider that a bad idea. Like, mercenaries in garrison locations make more sense to me because you're only really in danger of losing one strength point to a nasty card, right? In those cases. There might be cards that allow you to hit a bunch of mercenaries at once, I don't know. But the cards that I've seen are like the entire mercenary force disappears or has to make a morality check or something like that. A morality check, yes. But I'm thinking of the Europa simulation game I played recently, where you might go off pillaging if you fail your discipline check, which I think is so cool. But anyway, yeah, having a big stack of mercenaries to deploy is hard to deal with. And there's not an easy way to deploy things out to garrisoning, right? That's an expensive action. Spring redeployment allows you to put a big stack of stuff somewhere. I feel like there should be something that allows you to, something in the mechanism that allows you to like refresh to as many fortified, you know, put one strength point to as many fortified spaces as you like, instead of doing that big, more offensive or more war-oriented redeployment. There should be some other kind of spring redeployment that just allows you to refresh things that you may have lost through other means. Okay, the Catholic League does not form because there's no Protestant controls there. And I think that gets us to the end of that. There are no marriages on the books. Mary Queen of Scots got married already in the diplomacy phase, and Elizabeth canceled hers. So patronage. I guess I'll roll these out in real time. I mean, it's about the only excitement that comes from those things, which means I need to swap batteries first. And to think, you know, I mean, the marriage, the patronage especially, it really irks me in this game, right? It's one of the things that I think really turned me off of it initially. And again, it's sort of like, you could have the same sort of things in EU, a game I love, but they're all just handled on the spreadsheet, and there's no special mechanisms for them. You just spend money and you get points, whatever. Or maybe you spend money to roll a die and get points, but it's done all during the economic phase, and it just, I don't know if there's one where you roll a die, but here, what's happening is I'm spending essentially money, but it's money that, like, I don't know. Yes, I can use it in my military effects. But here's the thing. Something like this in the EU would be almost inconceivably cheap, right? You know, maintaining a single artist in high standing, or a single scientist with enough research materials or whatever, it's a tiny, tiny cost. It's a cost that the state sort of doesn't really cover usually, right? Maybe the one exception being the papacy, but it comes sort of from the royal, like, slush fund. And, you know, if EU had something like that, it would be, hey, spend $10, which is the amount it takes to move, like, one stack in one military impulse. You know, it would be the equivalent of like a 1 point in a card here. But and it would cover having a whole suite of these guys. You know, that would be an extreme expense in terms of actual money. The idea that, like, maintaining some artists and fashion and whatnot, or maintaining, you know, some commitment to the cost of science at that time, would actually cost something, you know, at the level that it feels like it does in this game, is just so painful. Because here, the minimum for a single chance is 2, you know? Anyway, what do we do first out of these? Artists are first. Oh, some of these might have special rules, right? I'm just making sure I don't have that. No. Okay. So for artists, I think we start with the most valuable artist gets to roll first. Evaluate the work of each artist. Why can't it tell me what I need to see right away? Proceed through the artist sponsored this turn from highest rating to lowest rating. Okay. So the highest rated here is a 3. At +1 is a 4. 7 gives him an 11, which is why to claim that's going to be a victory point, and that goes to Ronsard. So the French get an artist victory point. And here's the thing, these can't be accumulated. Like, these can't be treated as change, okay? Getting an artist 1 point victory point, that's a counter that's removed. It's no longer available. So you're not going to have another point on here. You do see what it is. So he did the 4 books of architecture. That's just, you know, that's just flavor text. It has absolutely no effect. You don't have to pick. So the guy I just took is an author, and he wrote about architecture. Okay, that doesn't sound right. This will be the next one, +4. 5, 9. I think that means he is returned to the pool and can be selected at random. Coming down here, I guess Baki is next because six. I bet he kills himself.
fled the country. Okay, and then another +2 here. And that gets a 12. You can see, you know, what you pay doesn't, it gives you a die roll. Wide action, get a victory point award. And that goes to the Dutch. What did he just do? Elegy for Suleiman. Yeah, that's something that Dutch author was certainly wrote. Again, you can pick the point award that you want, but it is unimportant. And I'm not really impressed with flavor text like that. I mean, it's okay. They got the other side of the counter, why not? But I'm just not impressed with it when it has no impact on gameplay or whatever. So that's them. Now we do the same kind of thing for the scientists. And Mercator is our top at +4. I don't think there are any other bonuses in play. Oh, somebody has the observatory. The English have the observatory, but they did not play one. Ooh, a big 7. That's probably nothing good. Distracted by astrology. He will go back to the pool. He would be discarded if he was shitty. And I guess that's German. I didn't put a marker under him, but I don't think anyone else had the capability to get one, so that's at +3. For a big old 15, Catalyst for a Revolution. Gain 1 victory point award of up to 2 and a bonus. Okay. Well, the 2 doesn't, we'll just take that and get those points. What did we do? Fabric and of modern science. I don't mind that one happening. That's 2 for them. And you can see all this maintaining state on the victory point track and everything. I could easily fuck up. But I get to pick something as well. What do we have left? We have map projection, plantation, which I have no interest in. Coastal fortification, not interested in. I think I'm taking cryptography. I don't know what the hell it'll do. Roll 1 extra die on espionage, attack, or defense. Telescope and map projection, let's just take a peek at those, make sure. Telescope gives a bonus for interception and avoiding battles. That's interesting. And the other one was map projection, which gives navigation bonus. That's not very helpful to the HRE. They have their 1 Explorer. I think I'm going to go for the telescope. Because I don't know what cryptography does. This gives +1 to intercept. Yeah. I think that's going to be very, very helpful. That clears those out of the way. This is where that might be useful. I wouldn't have to page back and forth. Okay, victory point awards. Virgin Queen should happen now. We're back in the marriage step. I skipped the marriage step entirely because there weren't any marriages to resolve. Bad idea. They do not double up. They're just all +1 victory point, double-sided. These could be used as change. So I'm kind of disturbed by that, to tell you the truth. Okay, let's go to the other victory point bonuses, though. Suez Canal was not built. This is major powers, not victory point. We find victory. We look over these. Nobody's in a position to declare victory. They're not far. I'm like 1 or 2 points away with the HRE from winning the game. Nobody knows that, but they could look and they could see, he's in pretty good shape. Potentially. We don't know whether or not he's picked that one. If he did, though, he's in a very strong position, and it's not going to take a hell of a lot to put him over, because countries like, I don't know, The Turks didn't really get smacked. They're doing fine. Everybody seems to be doing fine. It's just that there's general world peace, which apparently is good for the HRE. And a growth of Protestant areas, which particularly helps this table. Just seeing where, automatic victories might come in early. If this game ended on turn 2, wow. I would start to get a feeling that, maintaining the balance of power in this game is particularly hard, especially when somebody has something completely, that you don't know what their value is. But such hidden point values, you always kind of assume the worst when they're holding something like that. Okay. But we got some things that are going to happen. These are the Protestant spaces there. Let me just see. Okay. Make sure nothing happened there. These are specific bonuses, the victory point phase. Paris. If Paris is controlled by France, Spain, or the Protestants and not under unrest, the controlling player can earn. France gets 2 if it's late in the game. If these are not, it gets 1. Okay. Each turn has its own Paris victory point marker. So we'll just put that out. That actually I don't mind at all. And that pushes them up a little closer. And now we do Central Europe. The HRE does not control Budapest. Nobody's at standard or domination victory. It is not turn 7. Which means we will push here. And I will move the Papal Navy here because I'm worried I'll forget that. I'm not so worried I'll forget that big stack of people. Yeah, and I got to worry about this guy because he is subject to ransom. And, the Dutch want to ransom him, I guess. I don't know. If they want to do anything military, they want to get him back. They can't really cut many deals with the Spaniards. What they give for ransom, a random card, is one of the few things that they could do. I guess they could give territory or something along those lines, but again, it's going to be, they're at war with each other. They have directly conflicting aims. How likely is it that they can come to any agreement that something is better for both of them than the Netherlands transferring a card to the Spaniards? That's the default. And then, whatever else you might give. In all honesty, that kind of agreement does happen in games. Because people have different perceptions. But unfortunately, I don't have different perceptions of the value of things. I have the one that I have in my mind. Ideally, so in a real game, that's probably one person taking advantage of another with some additional knowledge or something like that, maybe cards they have in their hand. And quite often, so some unfamiliar players to a game will look and evaluate and say, yeah, that doesn't sound like a bad deal to me. And maybe even convinced by their opponent that, hey, this is good for you. That's kind of stupid, right? Your opponent wants this for a reason if he's trying to convince you of it. I'm much more I much more understand the novice player who here's somebody making a pitch to them and says, yeah, I don't think I want that. Just because you don't know everything. And you're in that position no matter what in the game because the other guy may be holding cards or something along that line. So, for example, if the Protestants are trying to sell you on something, even if you know all the rules, what you don't know is which cards he's holding when he's trying to sell you on it, and he may have a bunch of high-value cards. On the other hand, what he's offering, you may think to yourself, that's better than a card for me no matter what. I don't know what his intentions are. He may have some plans, but they may not actually be against me, right? I don't know. Anyway, We are at the end of the turn. At the end of this video, we're going to load it up. I know I'm taking, I'm doing a lot of detail on this and whatever. I feel like it's necessary, just the same way that I feel like with any other game. And with these CDGs, so much of the story is baked in the cards and in the impulse. The impulse dynamic breaks up the ability to step back and give a good narrative for me, because I forget what the fuck has happened in the last round. So it's almost a card by card is the only way that I can present the story at all, other than the synopsis I give at the at the beginning of each thing. Where are we now? Well, it's been a turn of peace. Poor Spain has given away the results of the Reconquista, or the end of the Reconquista at least. But yeah, not a lot has moved. We do have the Dutch revolt going on. Scotland was captured. I guess that's a big deal. Ireland is, I don't know, active is about all you can say, but active in different directions. Trouble is fomenting in France, but this was a really quiet turn. I believe these all get returned. I don't know if it makes a damn bit of difference. I can just throw them in because nobody's looked at them or anything, right? But we are going to come to the espionage rules on this next turn. This is turn 3, and that's going to allow Spain to launch crap in, launch, I don't know, are they called rebellions there? They got the English Catholic Rebellion, the assassinations, and playing around with intelligence and operatives. I'm going to go over those rules at the beginning of the next turn. I'm sure I went over them in my original intro, but these are completely new, right? We have not seen anything like these taking place in Here I Stand or Tanto Monta. Or Time of Wars. There are cards that kind of allow you to do espionage type stuff or witchcraft or whatever you want to call it. But this has a whole subsystem for that. And this is part of what kind of hit me about the game before, I think, was this kind of feeling of there's just so many little things. But now that I'm playing, I kind of don't mind so much adding more rules as I go. That feels very EU to me, right? At the beginning of each era, we got a whole new set of rules for that era. Or at least some, a little subset of special stuff going on that has to be paid attention to. All right, so up it goes.